Peace and blessings. My name is Mansa Musa. I am an artist and I'm an arts educator. And I've been an artist all my life. Sometimes my students say to me, Mr. M, which is what my students call me, Mr. M, when did you become an artist? And I say, well, I never became an artist. I was an artist in my mother's womb. When I was in my mother's womb, I was drawing, I was dancing, and I was drumming. And when I entered into the world, I kept doing those things. I kept adding more layers and learning how to do more stuff. At this point in my career, people know me best as a photographer, as a collage artist. I take photographs and I put them together and I tell a bigger story, because that's what art is about. Art is about telling a story. I don't care if you draw one line. Hey, there's a story behind that line. There's a story behind how you came to making this line and why you do it. So that's what artists are. We're storytellers. One of my students said, Mr. M, what's art? I said, to me, art is an exchange of ideas and information. And if we can have a pathway to each other, then we can come to a clear understanding about ourselves and the world and our place in the world. So, I'm also a teacher. I've been teaching for 46 years. I love to teach because I love to learn. Whether I'm teaching one-on-one or teaching kids from Jefferson Arts Academy in Elizabeth, or teaching little kids in public schools and libraries, I'm always looking to learn something from those children. Sometimes it's something as simple as, hey, my family's from Ecuador, and this is the effect that Ecuador has on my life. This is why I'm wearing this clothing. I said, oh, I learned something. Let me tell you this story. I tell you, art is a story. I'm working in the corporate world. Every day I go to work down by Wall Street. I got a tie on, I got a suit. A friend of mine who I'm working on an art project with, he says to me one day, we met at lunch, he says, are you all right? He says, you don't look too good. Is that tie choking you? I said, yeah, the tie is choking me and I don't feel good in these clothes. So I realized, just in working in the corporate world, this is not the place for me. I talked to my teacher, Ben Jones, who is my professor at Jersey City State College, art professor. He says to me, well, why don't you take a vacation? I said, you know, I got some vacation time. He says, listen, I'm going to Cuba. I'm going on a trip to Havana and Santiago de Cuba, which if you think about the United States, you're going to New York and you're going to Los Angeles. That's the space in between. Now, I knew Ben Jones in 1977. I met him when I was a high school student at Week Wake High School when I was 13. Met him again in college. And I was a student in his class in 1977, and he says, I'm going to Cuba. I said, going to Cuba? I said, you can't go to Cuba. How are you going to Cuba? He said, this was the first time he went to Cuba in 1977. 10 years later, he's telling me to go on this trip to Cuba. I had never traveled outside of the United States in my life. So this was the first time that I got to travel outside of the US. I went to Cuba and I thought I had taken a trip through a portal through the Twilight Zone. I saw these cars from the 50s. I saw the spectacular architecture, but the thing that I was impressed most with was the people. The love they had for themselves and Cuban people, the love they had for art, for culture, for dance and music. And so in 1960, the United States created this blockade, this embargo, and cut off resources to Cuba, the largest island in the Caribbean archipelago, and probably the most important, cut off all contact with people around the world. So since 1960 to 2026, this embargo has strangled the Cuban people. Now, one thing we know about them, we know they fight on, they're going to fight on. I was there in 24 and was shocked by the conditions that I found in the country. There was garbage all over the city of Havana, man, where the people and the government, the municipality simply didn't have the resources to collect garbage. I know because we came across this during COVID-19, during the pandemic, we were organizing people to send medicine and to send needles to Cuba. The Cuban people, they had already figured out a way to combat the COVID virus, but they didn't have a weapon to send it to the people. So I think that's been one of the oddest things about the embargo. No matter what happens in the world, humanitarian aid is essential to all countries. Every country needs humanitarian aid at some time. So there's an organization, the National Network on Cuba. You can go to nnoc.org. You can go to their website. And what that organization is doing is it's mobilizing people around the world to create a humanitarian effort that will bring materials to the Cuban people to help them survive. I don't know what you can do. You may be able to go onto the website and give them a small donation. You may be able to go onto the website and give them a big donation. You may be able to go onto the website and find out, hey man, I didn't even know that I could do this part. I'm a doctor. Well, I might be able to go. But the Cuban people need your support at this time. They're struggling to survive at the worst part of this embargo. We don't know if it's going to end with the orange one in office and his minions, but we do know this. Life is about struggle. When you stop struggling, you give up. So let's see if you can go to that website, nnoc.org, and see how you can help to keep this struggle alive.